The following is brought to you by Haney Farms, your canola, corn, and cereal seed experts. Find us at haneyfarms.com. We're joined right now on realagriculture.com by Kevin Hursh. He is the owner of Hursh Consulting and Communications, based out of Saskatchewan. Welcome today, Kevin.
My pleasure, Sean.
Kevin, obviously this week's big news out of Saskatchewan was the federal government turning down BHP's bid for Potash Corp. It sounds like it was a real surprise that the federal government did that. Based on what you've been hearing, why did they turn it down?
Well, I think it all stems back. There may have been various reasons. There may have been some political motivation as well in the part of the federal government, with 13 out of 14 MPs out of Saskatchewan are Conservative MPs, and it was not a popular position in Saskatchewan if they had approved the deal. So, some people speculate there's some political reasons, but giving them the benefit of the doubt, there was deemed by the federal government to be no net benefit to Canada from the takeover, and that's supposed to be the criteria. All things being equal, no net benefit was perceived. That was Saskatchewan's argument as well, that probably we're going to end up behind significantly in tax revenue, less control of a vital resource. And the federal government, it was a surprise for many political watchers that they did indeed turn down the deal, because this is not usual. Usually foreign takeovers have been approved.
Well, and so why don't, if tax revenues are going to go down, one of the things that I don't totally understand is that it's Potash Corp that's being sold, not necessarily the potash that's in the ground. So why doesn't Saskatchewan, the potash is still there? Why don't they just increase the taxes on it and make up the difference in the tax loss revenue?
Well, you hate to mess with revenue structures, and Potash Corp is not the only player here. There's also Agrium and Mosaic that play in this marketplace. And I guess the argument as well was that BHP made suggestions that they would drop out of Canpotex. Canpotex is the marketing arm for potash out of Saskatchewan, and involves the three companies. And basically the strategy has been to keep prices elevated. So if prices drop too far, they would just, not sell. And then they'd start to cut back on production. Whereas BHP seemed to be more of a mindset that it was going to churn out and stuff this stuff into the world market, whatever the price, and not be part of Canpotex. And I think that's one of the bigger fears as far as what that would mean to royalties coming to Saskatchewan.
Okay, so based on what you've been hearing, one of at least what I've been hearing as I watch things like BNN and CNBC, is that there's a little bit of criticism coming Canada's way. Canada has been, companies like Viterra and Agrium have been purchasing companies in Australia as of late in the last 12 months, and all of a sudden it's not okay for it to happen the other way. Have you been hearing anything on that? Does that affect our international reputation at all, do you think?
Well, there are some people, on the free market side of philosophy who say that this is government meddling in business. You should let business happen. So there have been some national columnists and some business people criticizing. But Saskatchewan did build alliances and has got support from including the Premier of Alberta and several other premiers and past premiers of Saskatchewan, and also a fair degree of support within the business community, pointing out that this is a very different resource. Saskatchewan has something like 50% of the known world supply of potash, and this one company controls about 30% of the known world supply, that being Potash Corp. And it's a very important resource to Saskatchewan, to Canada, with food production becoming more in the limelight. It's going to be a critical resource. So do you want a company from outside of Canada to be the one that's exploiting that resource, or would you rather have a more homegrown company, and a company that now, because of what's happened, has said that it's going to repatriate its corporate office in Saskatoon and bring some people home from Chicago? So I think those were the arguments, and I think they Premier Wall, who's also free enterprise philosophy, made the argument that this is a different deal. It's in the national interest. It's a large critical resource. And he cited examples in Australia where Australia has made the same sort of decision when it is such a large, important resource. And I don't think that the argument would be made had it been a takeover where there is less market concentration.
So is this a dead deal now? Because I read something about the basically BHP has to come back within 30 days and present a bit of a better offer. Is that just a price offer on the stock, or is this sort of maybe the marketing, committing to the marketing arm and those kinds of things? What happens next?
To have this not a done deal, BHP has 30 days to come back and prove with a different deal that there is would be a net benefit to Canada. Of course, BHP says there's still a net benefit. They didn't agree with that original premise that there's no net benefit, but they have 30 days to resubmit an offer. BHP has not necessarily indicated it. BHP has said it's going to examine its options. So the file isn't dead, but I believe it's all but dead. I think there's a very limited chance of this deal going forward now, and it also probably affects other foreign interests who may also have been lining up for a potential takeover.
So I guess, we heard that there possibly could be investment from a Chinese company. Is Agrium, or are they a player to work with Potash, or or is this just we're going to kind of move forward how we know it as of right now? What's going to happen here?
Well, there has been another one reported, and that involves a number of First Nations who have supposedly collected a bunch of international investment and were claiming they are going to make a play for Potash Corp. I'm not sure how seriously to take that, but it has been reported in the media. I would think that, I guess any other takeover bid that's foreign based would be considered, but I think there's now clearly a line in the sand that it has to show a net benefit to the country and to the industry. Right.
Well, I understand your reasoning on that. It's a different kind of resource. That does make a lot of sense. Final question: Does the Saskatchewan government own shares in Potash Corp, or what's the situation there?
Oh, well, it was a Crown corporation dating back way back to the 70s. It was an industry established. It had private players. They got into a dispute. I was just a kid, believe it or not, but they had a big dispute over royalties, and the Saskatchewan government nationalized them. Said, "No, we own it now. It's Potash Corporation of Saskatchewan. It's a Crown corporation." That Crown corporation was sold off to private interests and is publicly held now, and that happened in the Grant Devine government of the 80s. And it's been a huge increase in share value since that time. A company that was worth less than $1 billion is now a company that's worth $40 billion and is in private hands, but still exploiting a public resource.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, I'm sure there is, this story is not totally dead. I'm sure we're going to hear more about it going, as far as what did or didn't happen. And thank you very much for helping us understand this topic a lot more.
You bet. It certainly has raised the profile of potash in Saskatchewan.
No kidding. Kevin, we'll talk to you again soon.
You bet.